before we go deeper, we must be accurate. Richard Feynman did not define the soul in the way a religious teacher might define it. He did not present a doctrine. He did not say, the soul is this, and then ask people to believe him. That would not have been Feynman. Feynman's entire way of thinking was built on doubt, testing, curiosity, and humility. In his view, science was not a collection of sacred statements. Science was a method of finding things out. It was a way of asking nature a question, and then listening carefully to the answer. He warned that simply repeating the form of science is not enough. You can use scientific words. You can draw diagrams. You can wear a lab coat. You can quote famous scientists. But unless you are actually testing ideas against experience, you are not doing science. Feynman once explained that science grows from the willingness to recheck what has been passed down from the past, instead of accepting it merely because authority says it is true. That point matters deeply when we talk about the soul, because soul is a word heavy with tradition. Different religions define it differently. Different philosophers define it differently. Different cultures feel it differently. Some people mean an immortal essence. Some mean consciousness. Some mean personality. Some mean moral identity. Some mean the part of us that survives death. Some mean the invisible depth of being human. So Feynman would likely begin by refusing to be trapped by the word. He might ask, what exactly do you mean by soul? Do you mean memory? Do you mean awareness? Do you mean emotion? Do you mean identity? Do you mean moral responsibility? Do you mean something that can exist without the body? Do you mean something measurable? Do you mean something beyond measurement? This is the first Feynman lesson. Do not let a word pretend to be an explanation. A word can name a mystery. But naming a mystery is not the same as understanding it. If a child asks, what is a soul? And we answer, it is the soul, we have not explained anything. We have only repeated the question. Feynman disliked that kind of empty knowledge. He believed there is a difference between knowing the name of something and knowing what is actually going on. So in this video, we will not use the word soul as a magic answer. We will use it as a question. What is a human being? What is consciousness? What is love? What is memory? What is the feeling of being me? Can atoms become aware? Can matter care? Can a temporary body contain something meaningful? And if everything we are is made of atoms, does that make us less? Or does it make us more astonishing? Feynman once asked a famous question. If all scientific knowledge were destroyed and only one sentence could be passed to the next generation, what sentence would contain the most information? His answer was the atomic hypothesis, that all things are made of atoms. That sounds simple. Almost too simple. Everything is made of atoms. The chair, the ocean, the mountains, the air, the blood in your veins, the screen you are watching, the brain that is listening, the hand that touches, the eye that cries, the heart that breaks. All of it is matter. All of it is atoms. But Feynman did not mean this in a dull or lifeless way. He did not say, you are only atoms, as if that ended the conversation. In the Feynman lectures on physics, he explained that when we say we are a pile of atoms, we do not mean we are merely a pile of atoms. The arrangement matters. The complexity matters. The pattern matters. That is the key. A human being is not just carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, and other elements randomly thrown together. A dead body is atoms. A living body has atoms. But the difference is not the ingredients alone. The difference is the organization, the motion, the structure, the living pattern. Atoms in one arrangement form dust. Atoms in another arrangement form water. Atoms in another arrangement form bone. Atoms in another arrangement form a brain. And atoms in the brain do something extraordinary. They generate sensation. They hold memory. They produce language. They recognize faces. They imagine the future. They regret the past. They ask questions. They wonder about God. They fear death. They seek meaning. They make music. They create mathematics. They look at the universe and realize that they are part of it. That is not a small thing. To say we are atoms is not to insult the human being. It is to make the human being more mysterious. Because now the question becomes, how can atoms become a person? How can matter become experience? How can physics become poetry? How can a universe made of particles produce a creature that cries at a memory? This is where the Feynman view becomes powerful. He would not need to deny wonder. He would demand deeper wonder. He would not say, science explains the soul away. He would say, science shows that the thing you call soul is connected to the deepest structure of nature. It is not separate from the universe. It is made from the universe. The atoms in your body were not created only for you. They have been part of air, water, earth, stars, plants, animals, oceans, and ancient worlds. You are not outside nature. You are nature, temporarily arranged into a form that can speak. For a short time, the universe gathers itself into a human body. It opens two eyes. It gives itself a name. It loves other temporary arrangements of atoms. It fears losing them. It asks where it came from. And then one day, the pattern dissolves. The atoms remain. The form changes. The question continues. Is that not spiritual? Not supernatural, but spiritual in the deepest natural sense. There's a beautiful Feynman idea often summarized as atoms with consciousness, matter with curiosity, a universe of atoms, an atom in the universe. These words capture the heart of his scientific wonder. They come from Feynman's reflections on life, matter, and consciousness, often associated with his writings on the value and pleasure of science. Think about that phrase, matter with curiosity. Matter normally does not care. A rock does not ask why it exists. Water does not write poetry about the sea. Fire does not wonder about death. But in us, matter becomes curious. In us, atoms begin asking questions about atoms. In us, the universe becomes aware of itself. This is not just a poetic statement. It is a serious philosophical shock. If the human being is made of atoms, then consciousness is not outside the universe looking in. Consciousness is something the universe is doing from within. When you think, nature is thinking through you. When you ask a question, matter has become organized enough to question matter. When you feel wonder, the universe is not being observed by a stranger. It is being observed by one of its own temporary forms. This is one of the most powerful ways to approach the soul in a Feynman-style video. The soul is not treated as a separate object floating inside the body. The soul is the name we give to the total living pattern of a person. Their awareness, their curiosity, their memory, their love, their doubt, their humor, their pain, their moral struggle, their capacity to say, I am here. But Feynman would likely be careful. He would not say, therefore the soul is scientifically proven. He would say, let us not jump too fast. Let us not pretend we know more than we know. There are things we understand. There are things we partially understand. There are things we do not understand at all. And there are questions that may not be scientific in the ordinary sense because they may not be answerable by experiment. That does not mean they are meaningless, but it does mean we must be honest. Science can tell us what happens if certain conditions are present. It can tell us how atoms bond, how cells divide, how neurons signal, how light enters the eye, how sound becomes electrical activity, how memory relates to the brain. But when someone asks, what should I live for? That is a different kind of question. When someone asks, what is my suffering worth? That is not answered by a laboratory instrument alone. When someone asks, do I have a soul? The scientific answer depends on what they mean. If they mean, do I have consciousness, identity, emotion, memory, and moral life? Yes, those are real features of human existence. If they mean, is there a separate immortal substance that can be measured independently of the body? Science has not established that. If they mean, is human life deep, meaningful, and astonishing? Feynman's entire worldview says yes. But not because someone ordered us to believe it. Because when you look carefully, reality is already astonishing. Imagine a song. A song is real. You can hear it. It can make you cry. It can remind you of your childhood. It can bring back the face of someone you lost. But where is the song? Is it in the paper sheet? Is it in the instrument? Is it in the air? Is it in the vibration? Is it in the brain of the listener? The song is not one single object. It is a pattern. It needs matter to exist. It needs motion. It needs time. It needs relation. Destroy the pattern and the song is gone. But while it exists, it is real. Now imagine a flame. A flame is not a solid thing. It is a process. It is fuel, oxygen, heat, motion, reaction. The flame looks continuous, but its matter is constantly changing. The flame is not a separate substance hiding inside the fire. The flame is what the fire is doing. Now imagine a human life. Your body is changing all the time. The atoms in you are not fixed forever. You breathe in atoms. You breathe out atoms. You eat matter. You release matter. Your cells change. Your memories change. Your thoughts change. And yet you feel like this you is not a single atom. It is not one molecule. It is not one cell. It is a living pattern, a continuity, a process, a story written in matter. That may be the most Feynman-like way to speak about the soul without making false claims. The soul is not necessarily a ghostly substance. The soul can be understood as the organized pattern of a living person, the song of the body, the flame of consciousness, the dance of atoms that becomes identity. This does not make the soul fake. A pattern can be real. A wave is a pattern. A whirlpool is a pattern. A heartbeat is a pattern. A personality is a pattern. A memory is a pattern. A life is a pattern. And because patterns depend on arrangement, the arrangement matters. This is why reducing a person to atoms is not enough. To say you are atoms is true but incomplete. It is like saying a book is ink. Yes, a book uses ink. But the meaning is not explained by the ink alone. The meaning comes from the arrangement. Letters become words. Words become sentences. Sentences become ideas. Ideas become worlds. In the same way, atoms become molecules. Molecules become cells. Cells become nervous systems. Nervous systems become awareness. Awareness becomes a self. And the self becomes capable of asking, "What am I?" This is why Feynman's atomic view is not cold. It is explosive with wonder. If consciousness were made from some separate magical material, that would be mysterious. But if consciousness emerges from ordinary matter arranged in extraordinary ways, that is also mysterious. Maybe even more mysterious. Because then the universe already contains the possibility of mind, not imported from outside, not added as an afterthought, but hidden in the lawful behavior of matter itself. Many people fear that science removes meaning. They think that if love has a biological basis, love becomes fake. If thought depends on neurons, thought becomes mechanical. If life evolved from simpler forms, life becomes accidental. If humans are made of atoms, the soul disappears. Feynman strongly resisted this kind of thinking. He believed that scientific understanding adds beauty instead of removing it. In one of his famous reflections, he explained that understanding a flower scientifically does not make it less beautiful. It adds layers of beauty. Cells, processes, colors, evolution, and the connection between living things. This is essential for your video. A shallow view says, science explains things, therefore they become meaningless. A deeper view says, science explains things, and the explanation reveals more wonder. When we learn that a flower's color may attract insects, beauty does not vanish. It expands. Now the flower is not only beautiful to the eye, it is part of a relationship, a signal, a history, a survival strategy, a living conversation between plant and insect, sunlight and chemistry, earth and air. When we learn that the human brain creates emotion through physical processes, love does not become fake. It becomes embodied. It becomes part of the universe. It means that matter can care, that atoms can become grief, that molecules can become loyalty, that a physical body can hold a promise. This is not a loss of meaning. It is a deeper meaning. Because if love required a supernatural label to be meaningful, then nature would be spiritually empty. But Feynman's view suggests the opposite. Nature is not empty. Nature is unbelievably rich. The ordinary world is not ordinary. The ordinary world is what we have failed to look at carefully. A child's laugh is air vibration, muscle movement, brain activity, memory, trust, surprise, and joy. Does that make it less beautiful? No, it makes it more beautiful. A tear is water, salt, protein, nerve signals, and emotion. Does that make grief fake? No, it shows that grief is so real that the body participates in it. A human voice is breath shaped by flesh, but it can say, "I love you," and when it does, the entire physical universe has somehow produced meaning. That is the point. The soul, in this Feynman-style interpretation, is not destroyed when we understand the body. It becomes more astonishing, because now we see that the body is not a prison for the soul. The body is the instrument through which the soul plays. Or more carefully, the body is a living process we experience as self, mind, and soul. One of the most surprising things Feynman ever said about the soul was not a definition of an immortal spirit. It was about doubt. In The Pleasure of Finding Things Out, Feynman described doubt and asking questions as a fundamental part of the soul. That is extremely important. For Feynman, the soul was not certainty. It was not blind confidence. It was not repeating what everyone else said. It was the courage to question, the courage to say, I do not know, the courage to remain open, the courage to live without forcing false answers onto the universe. Many people think the soul is found in certainty. Feynman suggests something different. Maybe the deepest part of us is not certainty. Maybe it is the ability to wonder, to doubt, to ask, to keep the door open. This matters because false certainty can kill curiosity. If you think you already know everything, you stop looking. If you stop looking, the universe becomes small. Feynman did not want a small universe. He preferred an unknown universe to a fake answer. He was comfortable with uncertainty, not because uncertainty is easy, but because uncertainty is honest. The soul, understood this way, is not the part of us that possesses absolute truth. It is the part of us that refuses to lie about what we do not know. There is dignity in that. There is humility in that. There is even spirituality in that. Because true wonder begins where arrogance ends. If someone asks, why are we here? Feynman would not rush to fill the silence with a confident answer. He might say, I do not know. Maybe the question itself needs examination. Maybe why can mean different things. Maybe the universe does not owe us the kind of answer we expect. Maybe we must learn to live with mystery. But living with mystery is not the same as despair. It can be a form of freedom. You do not have to pretend. You do not have to force belief. You do not have to deny what you do not understand. You can stand honestly in the unknown. This is a very powerful message for a long YouTube video, because many people watching will have fears. Fear of death, fear of meaninglessness, fear that science makes life cold, fear that if they doubt, they lose their soul. Feynman offers another possibility. Doubt is not the enemy of the soul. Doubt can be part of the soul. A questioning soul is alive. A curious soul is awake. A soul that says, I do not know, but I want to find out, is not empty. It is burning. Now we must be careful. A Feynman-style video about the soul should not insult religion. It should not pretend that science has answered every human question. It should also not pretend that science proves things it does not prove. Feynman's view of science and religion was subtle. He argued that science cannot disprove the existence of God, but he also emphasized that scientific thinking requires uncertainty and doubt. This gives us a balanced position. Science is powerful, but science has boundaries. Science is excellent at questions like, if I heat this metal, what happens? If I combine these chemicals, what happens? If a particle goes through this apparatus, what happens? If brain activity changes, what happens to perception? These are scientific questions because they can be tested through experience. But questions like, what should I value? What kind of person should I become? What is sacred? How should I face death? What does my suffering mean? These questions may involve science, but they are not solved by science alone. Feynman recognized that science gives knowledge about the world, but knowledge alone does not automatically provide moral instruction. That is a serious point. Science can tell us how to build a machine. It cannot by itself tell us whether we should use that machine to heal or destroy. Science can explain the chemistry of a tear. It cannot alone tell us how to comfort the person crying. Science can study the brain of a dying person. It cannot alone remove the human weight of saying goodbye. So if by soul we mean the moral and emotional depth of human life, then science does not erase it. Science stands beside it. Science can illuminate it. But science does not replace the entire human search for meaning. Feynman's honesty cuts both ways. He would not allow religion to make scientific claims without evidence. But he also would not allow science to become arrogant and pretend it answers every form of human longing. The right position is humility, not weak humility. Strong humility, the kind that says, here is what we know. Here is how we know it. Here is what remains uncertain. Here is what we must not pretend. That is why a Feynman-style definition of the soul must be careful. It cannot say, science proves immortal soul. It cannot say, science proves there is no spiritual meaning. It can say, human beings are physical creatures of extraordinary depth. What we call soul may refer to real features of human life. Consciousness, identity, love, memory, imagination, moral struggle, and wonder. These features are not made fake because they arise through matter. They are made more astonishing because matter itself has become capable of inward life. The hardest question about the soul is death. If the soul is a pattern, what happens when the pattern ends? If consciousness depends on the living body, what happens when the body dies? Feynman experienced grief deeply. He lost his first wife, Arlene, when she was very young. His private letter to her after her death shows that even a great physicist did not experience love as a cold equation. He experienced longing, attachment, and pain. That matters, because sometimes people imagine scientists as emotionless. But Feynman was not emotionless. He was honest. Science does not protect anyone from grief. Knowing that the body is made of atoms does not make loss easy. Knowing that death is natural does not make it painless. When someone you love dies, you do not lose an abstract theory. You lose a voice, a face, a way of laughing, a private language, a future that will never happen. If the soul is a living pattern, then death is the end of that pattern in its embodied form. The body returns to the world. The atoms continue, but the particular organization, the person as we knew them, is no longer present in the same way. This is painful. Feynman would not cover that pain with fake certainty. He would not say something just because it sounds comforting. But he might also remind us that impermanence does not make something meaningless. A song ends. Was it meaningless? A sunset fades. Was it meaningless? A flower dies. Was it meaningless? A human life is temporary. But temporary does not mean worthless. In fact, some things matter because they are temporary. The fact that a moment cannot last forever makes it precious. The fact that a person can be lost makes love urgent. The fact that consciousness is fragile makes kindness necessary. From a Feynman-style view, death is not solved by pretending we know everything. Death is faced by looking honestly at life. What a strange thing it is that matter became a person at all. What a strange thing it is that the universe made someone who could love. For a few decades, atoms gathered into a body. That body learned a name. It recognized a mother. It laughed. It made mistakes. It dreamed. It feared. It loved. It became someone. Then the pattern changed. The atoms went on. The influence remained. The memories remained in other living patterns. The love changed form. Maybe that is not immortality in the traditional sense, but it is not nothing. Every person becomes part of the minds they touched. Every kindness changes the future. Every word spoken to a child may echo for decades. Every act of love becomes part of the world's continuing pattern. So even if we speak scientifically, a life does not vanish without consequence. It changes the arrangement of everything around it. You are not separate from the universe. You are one of the ways the universe changes itself. The phrase just atoms is one of the most misleading phrases ever spoken, because there is no such thing as just atoms. Atoms are not boring. Atoms make stars. Atoms make oceans. Atoms make thunder. Atoms make roses. Atoms make blood. Atoms make eyes. Atoms make memory. Atoms make civilizations. Atoms make music. Atoms make grief. Atoms make the hand of a mother holding her child. Atoms make the mind that asks whether it has a soul. If atoms can do all of that, then atoms are not just anything. The problem is not science. The problem is our imagination. We hear atoms and think of dust. Feynman heard atoms and thought of possibility. He saw that simple rules can produce astonishing complexity, that repeated interactions can build worlds, that nature does not need to be supernatural in order to be sublime. This is the emotional climax of the video. We are not less because we are matter. We are matter doing something extraordinary. We are not outside the universe. We are the universe arranged into questions. We are not machines in the crude sense. We are living processes. We are stories written in chemistry. We are memories held in flesh. We are temporary flames. We are patterns that know they are patterns. And this may be what the soul means in the Feynman-inspired sense. Not a thing you can weigh. Not a mist trap behind the ribs. Not a simple answer. But the whole living depth of a person. The pattern of consciousness. The courage to doubt. The ability to love. The pain of loss. The hunger for truth. The wonder of being here. If you want to call that soul, then the soul is not separate from nature. The soul is nature at its most inward. Nature seeing. Nature remembering. Nature asking. Nature caring. Nature saying, I, and then looking into night sky and realizing that same universe is outside me and somehow inside me too. So, what is the soul according to Richard Feynman? The most accurate answer is, Feynman did not define it as a religious doctrine, but his worldview gives us a powerful way to understand it. The soul is not explained by refusing science. The soul is deepened by looking more carefully. If all things are made of atoms, then the human being is not a stranger in the universe. The human being is a universe arranged into awareness. If the body is matter, then matter is not dead and meaningless. Matter is capable of life. If thought depends on the brain, then the brain is not merely machinery. It is one of the most astonishing arrangements of matter known to us. If love has a physical basis, then love is not fake. It means the physical universe can produce devotion. If doubt is part of the soul, then faith in truth requires humility. If death ends the pattern, then life becomes more precious, not less. Feynman's message is not, you are only atoms. His message is closer to, do not underestimate what atoms can become. Do not use mystery as an excuse to stop thinking. Do not use science as an excuse to stop feeling. Do not pretend to know what you do not know. Do not be afraid of the unknown. Look, ask, test, wonder, be honest, and never think that understanding the world makes it less beautiful. The soul, in this view, is not a rejection of the physical world. It is the deepest expression of it. It is matter awake. It is curiosity in flesh. It is the universe briefly opening its eyes. Pause. You are atoms, but not merely atoms. You are a pattern, a flame, a question, a memory, a living piece of the cosmos. For a short time, the universe has become you, and through you, it wonders about itself. What is the soul? Is it something inside us? Is it a hidden light? Is it a ghost living inside the body? Or is it something even stranger? A pattern, a dance, a temporary arrangement of matter that can look at the universe and ask, why am I here? For thousands of years, human beings have used the word soul to describe the deepest part of themselves, the part that loves, the part that remembers, the part that suffers, the part that hopes, the part that looks at the night sky and feels something too large for language. But what would Richard Feynman say? Feynman was not a preacher. He was not a mystic. He was not a man who liked easy answers. He was a physicist, a Nobel Prize-winning physicist, a man who studied light, matter, particles, probability, and the strange laws that make reality behave the way it does. He shared the 1965 Nobel Prize in Physics for his work in quantum electrodynamics, the theory describing how light and matter interact. But Feynman was also something else. He was a man of wonder. He believed that understanding nature did not destroy beauty. It deepened it. He looked at a flower and did not see less beauty because science explained it. He saw more. He looked at water, atoms, stars, living cells in the human mind, and saw a universe that was not less mysterious because it followed laws. It was more mysterious because it followed laws. So this video is not about pretending that Feynman proved the soul. He did not. This video is about asking a more honest question. If Feynman looked at what we call the soul, how would he understand it? Would he call it supernatural? Would he dismiss it? Or would he say, look closer. Do not be satisfied with the word. Ask what is actually happening. Because maybe the soul is not a thing hidden inside matter. Maybe the soul is what matter does when it becomes alive enough to wonder. This is the Feynman view of the soul, not as dogma, not as blind belief, but as atoms with consciousness, matter with curiosity, a universe inside a human being, and a human being inside the universe. Maybe the soul is not something we can hold in our hand. Maybe it is not something we can place under a microscope. Maybe it is not a simple object at all. Maybe the soul is a name we give to the astonishing fact that matter can become personal, that atoms can become love, that chemistry can become longing, that a brain can become a question, that a temporary life can still matter. Richard Feynman would not ask us to accept this blindly. He would ask us to look, to doubt, to examine, to stay honest, to enjoy the pleasure of finding things out. And perhaps that is the most soulful thing a human being can do, to stand in a mysterious universe without pretending, to admit we do not know everything, to keep asking, to keep wondering, to keep loving, because maybe the soul is not certainty. Maybe the soul is a courage to wonder,